From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. I am Nick Barris. It is a Thursday. How is your morning? Chilly, kind of cool out there. I planted tomatoes a week and a half ago, and I forgot to cover them last night, so gosh knows when I get home, we'll see. We've got this frost right now. I guess, what is this, dogwood winter right now? Don't head out. Just sit back and join us for the program this morning and dial us up if you'd like. We'll get the number up in a moment. We like to do this every week or so to bring one of our many experts on who just know the very latest on COVID and the vaccines, and there's been different developments there. Hey, look, you may know it all, or you may have a question here or there to touch bases on, and this is your chance to do it because you can call in and ask a question directly to our fine guest this morning, who is terrific at, I think, answering things in a way I can understand them. And I'm talking about Dr. Calvin Smith over at Meharry. And it's good to have you on, sir. How are you? There you are. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Nick. It's always good to talk to you, man.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. It's nice to have you on speed dial. Every once in a while, it's funny. I'll just share the story, Dr. Smith. I called you up, it was 2 weeks ago, I think, when I was on quarantine. Was one of the reasons I wasn't on here. It wasn't because I had COVID, but I had direct contact with someone who later came down with it. Out of an abundance of caution, I stayed home and reported from home instead of here to protect my colleagues. And I happened to have an appointment scheduled for my second COVID vaccine. I was getting Moderna while I was in quarantine, and I called you and said, look, would that be a problem? It was about a week later. I had showed no signs of any symptoms, and you said go ahead, right? I was wondering about that. Could it be a problem, someone who has COVID or has been exposed, to go get that vaccine?
If you're acutely sick, yeah, it'll be a problem. But in your situation and in situations where people aren't having symptoms and they've waited about 7 to 10 days, no problems at all. And I wanted to check back in with you, actually. How you feeling?
Pretty good. Everyone's had different reactions. I know you've had this shot. Which one did you, if you don't mind my asking, did you get Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, your vaccine?
Oh, I don't mind at all. I got Pfizer.
Okay, Pfizer. And a lot of people say it's the second shot that gets you. I wasn't blasted out, but I felt a little achy and not quite myself for a couple of days after the shot. But it was not bad. But I've heard from some other people, they literally were in bed all day. How about you?
Oh, yeah. So my second shot wasn't that bad. I actually had to drive down to Atlanta for a funeral the day after my second shot. And I was very tired, more tired than usual. I had some pretty, moderate body aches. I knew that I had the shot, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I was fine otherwise. Now, my MA, Janine, in my clinic, had to take a couple days off after her shot. And she's had about the most robust response I've seen of anybody.
Again, like you've told me before, it just can vary from person to person. Is it true also that maybe younger folks who get that second shot maybe have a stronger reaction because they're younger, their immune system's better? I'm older, and gosh knows how much of the antibody I developed from the first one, or is that a fallacy?
You know what, Nick? I've actually found that the people who have had the strongest reaction to it have been people who have had the virus before. So for whatever reason, and I have my theories behind it, but the people who have had coronavirus, like a symptomatic response to it, and have gotten the vaccine, the second dose has been pretty rough for them. And I think it's because the body's recognizing it and fighting it.
Okay, and let me ask you on that front, some people wondering if they had COVID, say 4 or 5 months ago, eventually recovered from it, you would think they already have the antibodies, but as you've said, it's recommended you still get the vaccine. Is it really needed? Because, some of the thinking is you've had it, you recovered, now you have the antibodies. Why is it still recommended you get the vaccine?
So the response you get from the vaccine is a bit stronger than the actual response, the immune response you get after having COVID. Your body fights off COVID pretty strongly and robustly, and is a bit fatigued. And from what I can see, I'm kind of speaking pretty plainly, but from what I can see, the immune response afterward is not as strong as you would expect. So the immune response you get from the vaccine, because you're not actively fighting along with getting the exposure, is a little bit better in making the IgG, which is the one that protects you in the long run.
And again, once you have had the vaccine, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, and I think, and I'll let you touch on this real quickly, I have friends who had the Johnson & Johnson. The convenience of a single shot's a great one. Of course, they've put a stop on that because of some very, very few cases of blood clotting issues. But talk about the Johnson & Johnson, and is it not true? I mean, when you talk about effectiveness, don't they say when you get both of the Pfizer and Moderna, you know, you maybe are above 90%, and Johnson & Johnson is 80 or whatever. Is that a big deal? And should folks who had Johnson & Johnson be concerned right now because they're like, well, wait, I've got that, and now they're stopping giving it?
Sure. They throw a lot of numbers out there, Nick, and I'm going to tell you the brass tacks of it, the be-all, end-all is this. All three of the vaccines are 100% effective in reducing the severe symptoms of COVID and reducing death, okay? So close to 100%. We can't say anything's 100%. They're all very, 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 like 99.999, okay? So there's that part of it. The other part of it is that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that came out, the reaction that occurred in 7 people out of about 6 million.
Right.
So we're looking at, the numbers are very, very minuscule, but in an abundance of caution, and because we don't want to actually be the cause of someone becoming ill, they put a pause to it to try to figure out what exactly was happening. It was a very, very rare type of blood clotting disorder, and really, again, 7 cases out of 6 million. It's very unlike if you've already received the Johnson & Johnson and it's been 2 to 3 weeks afterward, you're not at any risk whatsoever.
Oh, glad you said that.
Yeah. So, I think that there was an abundance of caution practice, and I agree with it. And I think that anytime something like this happens, we need to take a step back and look at what the potential causes are, do root cause analysis and all these fancy scientific things, right? But at the end of the day, I think that we probably will end up having it back out, and I would endorse it as safe. I've had several conversations with patients about it. I would feel comfortable with a family member or a friend of mine getting it, especially once we get to the bottom of what the reaction was.
Okay. As far as people getting the vaccine, and again, we'll take phone calls throughout the show, 737-7587, if there's something. I have a ton of questions always for this. I'm so interested to learn. I'm just wondering, okay, again, you made it very clear. It's effective. Even if you end up getting the virus after you've been vaccinated, you say you're not going to have a horrible reaction to it. You're probably going to have mild and you'll recover, so you're protected one way or the other. But it also could keep you from getting, by the way, just to tell you, the reason I was on quarantine, I was in a vehicle with someone who 2 days later tested positive for COVID, okay, for 4 hours. Now, I sat in the back seat with a mask. The individual I was with sat in the front seat with a mask, but I was in a car with the windows rolled up talking, for 4 hours. Now, of course, I had my 1 shot, and I did not get it. Now, I don't know why. Maybe it was the vaccine. Maybe it's because we covered up. Maybe I was just lucky, But, I mean, it really does work.
Yeah, the vaccines work, and the masks, again, I'm still wearing my mask in public. If anybody sees me out in public, even out at the park, outdoors, most of the time I'm covered with my mask. So, the masks really work. The flu season is evidence of that. And, I really want people to understand that, while these masks are not 100% effective, you have to say that. You have to let people know nothing's 100% effective. But if that's the part you latch onto, and that's the reason why you don't wear the mask, then that kind of defeats all the rest of the evidence out there. You know what I mean?
Right. So. Exactly. And let me ask you this then, too, and we'll get more into this as the show progresses, but those not getting the shots. I have several friends, that I work out with who are in my wife's dance class who happen to be African American. They're smart, intelligent women, okay? A handful of them have chosen to go ahead cautiously to get the vaccine. And there are still some there who aren't getting it, not because they don't believe the science or, some of that crazy stuff the anti-vacciners are all about, but more about just, because of the history of what's happened in the African-American community. It's just there. It's there, doctor. And they haven't gotten it. And I try to tell them, I talk to you, and they want to hear it from an African-American doctor like yourself. What would you say to them? I mean, these are good people, and I can tell they want it, but they're afraid to get it.
Yeah, I mean, and the same thing goes for a lot of our friends in the rural communities out here in Tennessee. And people want to be listened to. You have to listen to what people's concerns are and, respect their decisions ultimately as adults. But I tend to want to give people the evidence that I know, good, bad, and ugly. Any conversation that I have with my patients, with anybody that I know, I'm telling them everything I know. I'm not holding anything back. And I think that helps quite a bit with a community that has had a lot of distrust and a lot of reason to have distrust. And that's the other thing about that conversation is that a lot of times that reason is not acknowledged. And people have to understand that, no one wants to be gaslighted. No one wants to be made to feel as though they are condescended to or talked down to. That's not a good feeling. I've had that occur with me. And so with that being said, I like to try to talk to people on a very real level. And at the end of the day, respect each other coming in and coming out of the conversation, even if the outcome is not quite what I would want it to be.
I got you. As we go to the break, though, you would tell my friends, take it from me. It's safe. If you have concerns, look into it, but go get it. Like I said, they're not against vaccines. These are the same women that, get flu vaccines on occasion, maybe, but they're just cautious because this is so new in the history. You would say, go. And
I'll have those tough conversations, but at the end of the conversation, I always say, from what I know, go do it. Yep. Please protect the people around you.
Yeah, and you're practicing what you preach because, of course, you've received the vaccine, and so have I. Listen, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we've got some phone calls, Ann and others. If you're there, the number 737-7587. I know a lot of the general things have been covered about COVID and the vaccine and the like, but you may have a more specific question, something a little outside the realm on this that you have a question about, and this is your chance to ask Dr. Smith, who knows his stuff. We'll be back with him and more right after this.